coming back to you tired as heck, but the show must go on. So today I'm here to talk about some of my personal favorite movies to watch during the Halloween season. Some of these picks of mine are pretty much a staple. I'm going to watch them during the Halloween season, probably at some point. Some of these are pretty obvious picks and they're a given. Some of these you may not have heard of or may have heard of, probably haven't seen. But here we go. So starting off, I have the original Dracula here. Actually, this is the Dracula Legacy Collection on Blu-ray. Now, I have only seen, out of all the movies that are included in this collection, I have to, sit down and watch the rest of these because I really enjoy at least the original Dracula. And I've watched Dracula's Daughter, and that one's pretty good actually for a sequel. While Dracula himself is not in the sequel, Dracula's Daughter is actually a pretty good sequel, and I really enjoyed it when I watched it. So I'll have to give that another watch probably this Halloween season. But the original Dracula from 1931 with Bela Lugosi is pretty much just a given. He puts on one of the most iconic performances and basically made Dracula what it is on the screen. And trying to follow that up is a tough act to follow. And while Bela Lugosi only played Dracula one time, he made a heck of an impact as, a horror icon. And, he was actually, when Bela Lugosi died, he was buried in his Dracula cape. And I think that's super cool. And that was such an important role to him. And it's to this day, like, some people could say that the original Dracula is kind of boring, but I just really love the pacing of it between him and Edward Van Sloan, I believe is his name, who plays Van Helsing, or Dr. Van Helsing. And just the chemistry between them both is really good. And I always enjoy the original Dracula. Like, the original Universal Monster movies always were just a certain vibe, and you can't really recapture that from, the 1930s and 40s and such. But the original Dracula is really good. So the movies included on here is Dracula, Dracula's Daughter, Son of Dracula, House of Frankenstein, which is both Dracula and Frankenstein's monster in the same movie, House of Dracula, and then they have Abbott and Costello. Abbott and Costello meet Frankenstein, which is kind of funny that that's included in here. But yeah, these look good on Blu-ray, and I'll have to check out the rest of them. And actually, it's pretty cool. There was a Spanish version of the 1931 Dracula with different actors and such, but it was the same type of movie shot. And a lot of people say that the Spanish version of Dracula is also really good. But yeah, can't go wrong with the original Dracula and Bela Lugosi's really, really good performance. Next up is one that's kind of a little unusual. This one is called The Guest, and The Guest is, based on its cover, you think it's an action movie, and it has aspects of like drama, action, and horror, but it's all blended really well in a pretty good movie. And The Guest, the whole thing of The Guest takes place around Halloween. There's a lot of like Halloween type atmosphere in this movie, even though like most of the movie is just about a guy who pays a visit to this family who he knew. Their son had died in combat in war, and the guy Dan Stevens plays was like his best friend, and he basically just he comes to visit the family and just say like, your son loved you, and I got to know, hear about all you guys from your son. And, they basically just like kind of form like a friendship, and he stays with him for a couple days. But obviously something's not quite right with this guy. And as it goes on, like some people probably will enjoy the first 2/3 of this movie, and then the last third is kind of where I feel like it'll lose some people. But I thoroughly love this movie. It's super entertaining. And yeah, there's just little scenes of like, there's just Halloween stuff, like, you know, decorations and stuff. There's a scene with Dan Stevens' character and like the younger brother of the family, like carving jack-o'-lanterns, and like while it's like, you know, kind of action-ish, like there's a set piece like towards the end of the movie where there's this school putting on a Halloween dance and stuff. So it's like it's got a lot of the Halloween stuff in there. And you know, while it's not like by plot a Halloween type movie, like the atmosphere and just the set pieces and everything, it's very Halloween like, and it gets you kind of in the spirit of Halloween. So that's why I picked The Guest. It's a very good movie though. Next up is kind of like that same type of thing where it's not by plot or anything a Halloween movie, but everything surrounding it like has like events, you know, around October and stuff. And this is one of my favorite movies of all time. I did a video talking about the VHS a couple of years ago if you want to check it out. But that is Donnie Darko. And you know, it's like a sci-fi movie, it's a time travel movie, but it's a coming of age movie like wrapped up into one. Throughout the movie is like, you know, the school has like a, you know, Halloween dance type thing. There's a Halloween party at the end of the movie. Just a lot of like October and fall type vibes throughout the movie while the plot goes on. And this really puts me in the Halloween spirit. I mean, I watch this movie all the time. I've seen it a lot, but this movie always puts me in the Halloween spirit. And it's funny, just like on surface level, you don't really think of this as a Halloween movie, but like it takes place all during the month of October. So this is a good one. And if you want to hear me talk more in depth about Donnie Darko, watch my Donnie Darko VHS review. Next up is a movie that means a lot to me, and it definitely meant a lot to a lot of other people, especially the actor who was in this movie who tragically died while filming this movie, and that is the movie The Crow. I have not seen any of the sequels. I haven't really heard that many good things about it, but Brandon Lee, who plays Eric Draven, he tragically died on set due to an accident with one of the guns like had a real bullet in it by accident, and he was shot and he died on the way to the hospital filming this movie. And it's kind of crazy how they've you know completed the movie, and it's a great movie. It's a really good action movie, but the whole movie is just the ultimate goth vibe, like, you know, like Hot Topic in the 90s type goth vibe, and has an awesome soundtrack. The action scenes still hold up to this day for me. I love that they've been trying to remake this movie for a long time. Like, it's probably been over 10 years they've been trying to like get this movie like in the right hands and get the right actors and stuff. But I like to call it the curse of the crow, and something tells me like Brandon Lee from the Afterlife is like, no, like don't ruin my legacy, because this movie is his legacy, like the son of Bruce Lee. And I think he was maybe in a couple movies before this, but this movie, you know, this movie died with him, and it's a tragedy, but a really, really beautiful movie came out of this. And yeah, like, even though it's an action, like, revenge movie, like, it's got some really touching scenes, and yeah, like, it's a beautiful movie to put on around Halloween time. Next one is obviously a staple, and that's John Carpenter's Halloween from 1978. And this one is like, Kelly and I always watch it like the day of Halloween, like either during the day or the night of, after, you know, everyone's done trick-or-treating and such. But this one, you know, no matter how you feel about, if you hate all the sequels, no matter what, like, this one is always, it comes back to this one. This inspired the slasher genre, basically. You know, this put the slasher genre on the map. And even though I wouldn't even consider this really a slasher movie, because Michael Myers in this movie, he only kills like a few people, like maybe 3 people, but this movie's so well paced, it's so simplistic in its execution, and this is one of the few movies that, to me, actually gives me chills at the end. Like when Dr. Loomis comes in, he shoots Michael, he falls out off the balcony of the house, and then he goes to look at him and he's gone. And Donald Pleasance, who plays Dr. Loomis, just has like the perfect face, because it's like, it's saying that, like, it looks like he's shocked, but at the same time not shocked at all that he like disappeared and he's just out there somewhere. And then just cutting back to Laurie, and then she's just like sobbing and like freaking out, and it's like the perfect ending to like a really good horror film. And so I'll just leave that at that. I mean, you can't say enough good things about it. I'm sure there are people out there where they're like, I don't see what the big deal is, and that's valid, but I really love Halloween 1978. It's one of my favorite horror movies of all time, and I always watch this around pretty much the day of Halloween. Next up is one that Kelly and I watch pretty much like going into the Halloween season, or probably the day of Halloween, and this is Trick or Treat. And anyone who hasn't seen Trick or Treat, it's probably one of the best horror anthology movies, I would say. Like, it's up there with Creepshow, I would say. And yeah, I mean, Michael Dougherty, who did this movie, he went on to do another holiday horror, which was Krampus, which I really enjoy, and some people didn't enjoy that as much as Trick or Treat, but yeah, for good reason, because Trick or Treat is just, it's great. Like, all the stories that end up, like, you know, all the stories end up combining into one another, and like has like this smooth flow. At the end of the movie, you're like, oh, they all connect together, and it's like, it's done so seamlessly, and that's what I really love about this movie. And it's really simple in its execution, and Sam is just a really great horror character, a pretty underrated horror character, and it's a shame that we never got a sequel, and people have been asking for a sequel since this movie was released. I mean, this was like 2007 it came out, and yeah, I would love to see a sequel to this. It probably obviously won't live up to expectations, but I really love this movie and would love to see a sequel. Next up, this is a movie that got kind of a bad rap when it came out. It was universally hated. It has gotten a lot of traction, and it's gotten a lot of love over the years now, and now pretty much like really big horror fans love this movie, and I'm one of them, and that's Halloween 3: Season of the Witch. And if you just cross off the Halloween there and just call it Season of the Witch, it's a great movie, because this movie had all the expectations of having Michael Myers in it, and he's not in it at all. And if you've seen the Halloween 2018 or Halloween Kills, those movies pay homage to this, the Silver Shamrock Mask. Like the 3 kids on the front here, the mask that they wear, there's 3 kids who wear the Silver Shamrock masks in Halloween 2018 and Halloween Kills. And it's basically paying respect to this movie, because like, this movie could have launched a really, really cool anthology series, but I feel like it would have worked better if Halloween was just its own movie, and then Halloween 2, and then you had like the Season of the Witch type title afterwards. I feel like it probably would have worked a little better, rather than Halloween 1 and 2 be about Michael Myers and then changing the whole story and trying to make an anthology series from there. But this is a great standalone movie, and it is, when you think about the concept of this movie of like kids putting on these masks and then like it basically is killing all these kids, it's like, it's pretty dark, but with the execution of it, this movie nails the Halloween atmosphere. You have the Silver Shamrock jingle that's played throughout the film, and it's like, that can be annoying, but at the same time, it's like, you know, it's supposed to be a commercial, so it's like, those are commercial jingles. It's like, they're annoying, but they stick in your brain. And yeah, this is a great one. If you haven't watched it, If you're like, oh, Michael Myers isn't in it, I'm not interested, give it a chance. It's really good. This is one that Kelly and I kind of just like watched on a whim and really fell in love with it. We loved it so much that we had to actually own it, and it's kind of hard to find on a physical copy, but you can actually find this movie on YouTube for free if you want to check it out. But it's a movie called When Good Ghouls Go Bad, and this is a great movie for kids as well. R.L. Stine wrote the story for this, and it has Christopher Lloyd in it, and it's really interesting. It's like basically like this kid who's like rejected. He looks a lot like Edward Scissorhands. He basically like this tragic accident happens, and then he's very vengeful towards the town, like, you know, in the afterlife, and it basically causes the town to not celebrate Halloween. And it's like you can't mention, you know, Voldemort's name in Harry Potter. It's like people in the town, it's like you do not say Halloween because everyone freaks out. And yeah, there's like the dad of the main kid character, like his dad like wants the town to like celebrate Halloween again, and everyone's like, it's been banished because of this kid who died in a tragic accident. But this is a TV movie, and it's surprisingly really good for a TV movie, and I highly recommend this. Like, Christopher Lloyd is really, really entertaining in it, and this has that like R.L. Stine Goosebumps vibe throughout. So I think if you're a fan of Goosebumps, like the books or the TV series, like, it's got a lot of cheesiness, but everything is like orange and gold and like, you know, fall colors and all like pumpkins everywhere. So this one nails the Halloween atmosphere for sure. So check it out for sure. Coming down to the last few here, is I have the Nightmare on Elm Street collection here. So usually Kelly and I, we watch the original Nightmare on Elm Street because that's just classic horror. And if I have time, I usually put on Dream Warriors because that's probably my favorite Nightmare on Elm Street movie. It's just a great sequel and probably a fan favorite, like among fans of the series. I actually enjoy most of the Nightmare on Elm Street movies. Like, one's a classic, two I was kind of on, but I've watched it a few times and I have started appreciating it a little more. It's kind of its own thing, and it breaks a lot of the rules, but it's still a very interesting movie to check out. And Dream Warriors, it basically just takes the Freddy Krueger premise, and, you know, he can kill you in your dreams, and then having, you know, all the protagonists like very likable, and they have their own superpowers in their dreams. It's pretty cool, actually. So if you haven't checked out Dream Warriors, definitely watch Nightmare 3 Dream Warriors. But the original is a staple in our household. Like, we always watch around Halloween time, and you can't say enough good things about it. Love you, Robert Englund. Next up is one that I don't watch a lot of the Goosebumps old episodes, but this one, it's a two-parter, and I absolutely love it. And we actually have it on DVD. Is One Day at Horrorland. And a lot of people recognize that iconic cover of One Day at Horrorland from the books. But I love this episode. Like, the monster characters are just so bonkers looking, and just this family goes to this, you know, amusement park called Horrorland, and just a lot of like bonkers things happen with like all these monsters. They're like kind of goblin, they have like horns and stuff, and just the direction it goes is really, really funny. Like, if you love like cheesy, while this wasn't made in the 80s, like 80s type like cheesy like horror vibes, this is all over this episode, and it's just a blast. So I highly recommend it. Like, Goosebumps was a kid's show, so this is a fun episode for everyone to enjoy. And finally, my last one is, this is probably my favorite Universal monster movie or movies, and that is Frankenstein. And Boris Karloff, you know, he's done so many iconic horror roles, but you know, this was as staple as Frankenstein's monster. I love Frankenstein and Bride of Frankenstein. Some people say Son of Frankenstein is really good too, which I have to check that out eventually. But you know, Frankenstein and Bride of Frankenstein, it's like those are the two perfect, like that's the perfect double feature, is because like Bride of Frankenstein takes place like immediately after the first film ends. It's just like a second episode of a series. Like it just picks right up, and both are great. I mean, while in the original Frankenstein, the monster like doesn't talk, he just grunts. But in Bride of Frankenstein, he actually talks a little bit. And in Bride of Frankenstein, my favorite scene is when the monster, he stumbles in the woods upon this like blind old man and basically like has a little bit of a friendship with him. And while that ends in tragedy, like that's probably one of my favorite scenes of both of these movies. The original Frankenstein, the introduction before the movie starts, Edward Van Sloan, who's in the movie, he comes out and he gives like this minute-long introduction. It's probably my favorite like introduction of a movie ever. I don't know, it's just the perfect setup for it. And at the time, it probably scared the crap out of people with these movies, but now it's like cheesy, but you can't help but love Edward Van Sloan. He's like so charismatic in his delivery of this introduction. But yeah, I always have to watch both these movies around Halloween time, and it's perfect for it, I think. So that is my last DVD. But yeah, all of these are basically staples in my household to watch around Halloween season. But I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and hopefully some of my recommendations you take me up on and end up watching. But I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and if you have opinions of any of these movies, definitely leave a comment, and yeah, give me a thumbs up if you enjoyed my video. And my name is Brett, and I will see you in a future video. Bye.